Welcome everyone to your monthly dose of Ashes of Creation updates. This month we have been promised some combat updates, so let's get right into the action and see what this is all about. Today we have a small slice of the combat update, as Margaret calls it in the beginning of the stream, and that represents a showcase of the basic weapon attacks update. Steven prefaces this demonstration with some additional info as well. Rather than have a grand reveal of all the class kits and abilities and combat changes, they have decided that they should segment the updates into smaller chunks so that people have the chance to comment on specific aspects of the changes that are being made. So the first and foremost one that made sense to the team to present, and that is the most foundationally core aspect of combat, is going to be the basic weapon attacks. They wanted to showcase and focus the changes made in regard to the directional movement functionality, root motion versus split body, the ancillary components of combat like animations, VFX, audio, and just show that at a base weapon level. So this month is specifically just for taking a look at the basic weapon functions, and as a bonus with a few weapon master class skills being thrown here and there, but with the primary focus being in the feeling of that basic weapon combo attack. The combat actually looks great, the hit reacts, the visual effects, and the audio cues, and every other little detail. You can quite feel the weight of the weapon that is being used, and the pacing looks good too. Now, regarding what you are seeing in the background footage, Steven wanders a bit outside the combat update spectrum, and talks about how he didn't like the fact that in most MMORPGs, every portion of land is covered by some type of monster. Steven further continues by saying that he is actually in a very dangerous area, and how that feeling of danger is partly communicated by the aspects of the surrounding rocks and the specific types of materials that are represented here. And I agree, you can definitely see that the area is a bit different, and as a player you might feel compelled to explore this weird place. The feeling is definitely subtle and well executed. The enemies are not in your face and they only react to your proximity, but basically only if you have chosen to wander and check out the out-of-place environment. All of this is true in my opinion. In an MMORPG, it does kinda ruin the immersion when you see like 300 wolves just vibing on a random patch of land or something. Here, the enemies are not in your face, and your first signal that you have wandered too far into danger is an audio cue, and the cool animations of these little monsters.
Questions about our hypotheses and what we think is good, right? So we really focused on individual aspects that we think makes good combat and answered them one at a time in a very tight iterative process.
So yeah, the choice of having these kinds of areas seems pretty cool to me. Next up, it's time to switch from the heavy sword to dual daggers. Here we can notice a fundamental difference between these weapons. Even though they are both respecting your direction, the daggers never really slow you down, while the sword will slow you down at certain times. While dealing some damage, Steven transitions into another important topic. He mentions how another interesting thing that relates to past MMO experiences, and what we are accustomed to see, is the floating damage text that pops up when you either deal or receive damage. Here he showcases the floating damage text in Ashes by letting the mobs hit him. As you can see, upon receiving damage, the numbers float towards the player's left hand side, while dealing damage will make the numbers float towards the right hand side. One of the very important aspects of the floating text is to provide players with customization options, like adjusting the text size, color composition, and damage icons to indicate the ability that's used for dealing damage. The critical attacks are also called out in a separate manner, and again, this is quite subtle. They are a little bigger and just hovering slightly above the other numbers. There is also additional functionality for cumulative damage, but they don't really go into detail about this. Another subtle component of defining the weapon attacks lies in the visual effects, and here I believe the team is on the right path as well. I'm talking about the weapon trailings, the intensity of those, how they scale up based on the type of weapon, the level of weapon that you have, and even environment impact. For example, with the first strike on the great sword, you can see the visual effect it leaves on the ground, and this is visible on the backswing as well. The sword leaves little craters in the ground. Another important aspect is the audio component that goes into combat, and here I'll pass it to Steven for a demonstration.
Perfect area for us to kind of get both player feedback as well as for us to log data
During the Q&A section of the stream, someone asked Steven to clarify the upper bound for agency versus weight, and if that means that the combat will go into a more heavy direction. Steven addresses this and clarifies that there is a balance between player motion and weapon weight. The heavier the weapon is, the more restrictions are going to be placed on the player agency. And this is done in order to showcase the rooted effect, the heavy weight aspect. So, by presenting both dual daggers and the greatsword in this demonstration, the team shows the range between complete player freedom with light weapon attacks and the maximum range of rootedness or weightedness that's present on the two-handed weapon. So, for future medium weapon showcases, you can expect them to be somewhere in between that. And a little bonus that you might have not noticed is that in this footage we can also see the male Pyre race for the first time in the game. Next up, boys, we got the character art, and we are gonna kick things off with a Dread Crawler, a demon with burrowing abilities. He is a boss that lives in the desert biome and will be present in the Alpha 2 testing phase of the game. Steven can't resist and gives us some pieces of the lore as well, explaining that during the fall, this boss was essentially a war machine. It was used by ancients to help defeat cities with its burrowing abilities, or by simply demolishing walls. We also have the Mantle of the Radiant Grove. This is a costume cosmetic skin that will also be used for the NPCs. We also got the Cursed Charger mount and some of its different variants. And last but not least, the modified Pyre race models after taking player feedback into consideration. The last part of this video will be Q&A from the stream. So if you're only interested in the visual demonstration for the combat changes, this marks the end of that.
So our first question here is from North the Mage and Elwyn Drill, and they both wanted to know about naval mechanics. Are there any plans to have wind in sailing? And I know we've talked about this topic a little, but we haven't gone into super depth with it.
Yes, there is wind. Wind is an important component of the open sea, quote unquote open sea. So that's all non-coastal areas. And that open sea, based on the composition of wind in the open sea, will influence the speed directionally that a boat is traveling in, and how that speed gets influenced by the winds.
Next up, we have Kiwi asking about gear customization, which, you know, we do have a thread about it. So with the most recent dev discussion going on, what were your plans so far with color and dye system and the color and dye system?
So one of the things that we want to do, again, talking about player agency, is we want to give them the ability to kind of change the appearance of their armor sets that they're wearing. And the way we've approached the dye solution is through a channeled system. We have a 2-channel dye system where the first channel is a lower grade dye that it has influence over between 10 to 20% of your overall armor appearance. And then the second channel dye is a higher tier dye that you have to acquire. And by doing so, you can influence the remaining 30%, up to 30% of that armor appearance. So up to a total of 50% influence that can occur across all the pieces that you wear. Now, one unique approach to the way we're doing this dye system is we're not allowing individual dyes to be applied on individual items, but instead we keep a cohesion across the set by applying that dye channel to your character. And when you equip a piece with your overall character, it will assume that dye channel from your paper doll. So you apply the dyes to your character, and when you equip a piece of item, it will take that dye and it will influence the channel over that particular piece so that it comes into alignment. And the reason that we're doing that is there's a lot of options with regards to customization for your character appearance, whether it be through transmog, through costumes, through mixing and matching sets and pieces that you can wear, right? And what we want to avoid is the rainbow effect, where, you know, these pieces do not look good together and it creates the clown that's walking down the street, and it's a bit comical to see the clown that's walking down the street. So we've unified it through the dye channel system that applies across your paper doll.
Our next question is from Kraken, and they would like to know about freeholds. Do you expect most players who want a freehold to be able to get one, or will they be prestige symbols owned by a small fraction of players?
That is a very good question. I think the answer is that if a player wants to achieve a freehold, they can achieve the freehold. However, the amount of effort, resources, and time that's required in order to achieve that freehold is a large amount. It is something that is a monumental achievement for you to get that freehold. And the reason why is because freeholds tie in very heavily to the processing artisanship aspect. Some processing can be done in nodes, but the best processing is done on freeholds. And we want to make sure that there's a little bit of a throttle or gate on the amount of effort that's necessary to achieve that influence over the processing market.
And we have from Bomanizer, they want to know about game settings. Will dense foliage be baseline in the game, or will people turn them off in the settings to minimize PvP efficiency? Think hiding in bushes.
We will not allow. We will not allow players to to adjust the density of foliage actors in the world. That will be universal.
Triel wants to know about weapons. Will equipping different weapons change your skill set? And if so, how will you balance that in regards to class identity, as in having character be defined by their equipment base as opposed to their class?
I am not a fan of, in MMORPGs, having equipment-based skill sets. I think that you have class-focused skill kits, and that if I know your class, I know what you have access to. I might not necessarily know what you've spec'd into, but I am sorry, I strongly dislike the idea of tying the skills into the weapon. I think it's unique. I think it's novel. It's just not for me necessarily. Our approach is not going to be providing skills through weapons. It's going to be providing skills through classes.